Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for that. Welcome everyone for this month's Tech for Good Thursday. We're so glad you're here and we celebrate you every day, especially so today. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you are new to World Pulse, we welcome you to our vibrant global community. Please make sure you're muted so everyone can hear clearly, and you can always answer the Zoom poll and say hello in the chat whenever you feel like. Feel free to click the CC button at the bottom of your screen to turn on live captioning on this call. And we also have interpretation today in ASL. Before we get started, we want you to know that we take your privacy and security very seriously. Don't hesitate to stay off video for your privacy. You may change your name if you would like to avoid being identified. We do take a few photos that go on our social media, and these sessions are being recorded. We at World Pulse are on a mission to create a world where our community thrives, one click, one comment, and one connection at a time. We envision a future where everyone believes in the power of our own voice and uses it to build a world where all life thrives. We strongly believe that when our community's voices are heard and connected, they transform the world for the better. We are inclusive and intersectional. We believe a world where all women thrive is a world where everyone thrives. World Pulse strives to be a safe, supportive, and brave space for women and for all who support gender justice to catalyze our mission. We celebrate the unique attributes, characteristics, and perspectives of every person. At the same time, we are facilitating space to amplify women's voices and build a community that values, respects, and cares for every individual. When you join our global social network, you're joining a worldwide community of voices that are speaking out and lifting each other up. And your voice connect with a growing and passionate community and build solidarity with your fellow community members across the globe. How do we do this? You may wonder. We do this by focusing on three key areas: connection and community. Everyone has a voice in our supportive online community. Our online network is a sanctuary where everyone with access to the internet can be heard, access resources, and connect with like-minded others and organizations from 227 nations to solve global problems. We are a safe space for everyone who believes in the importance of achieving gender equity, including men and gender diverse people. We focus on storytelling. We magnify the power of your voice. Our editorial desk crowdsources powerful stories and solutions and promotes them to media outlets and influential forums. We also focus on training. We equip you with tools to be a digital savvy changemaker. Our trainings are focused on building your agency by equipping communities of changemakers working at the grassroots with the digital skills and social change knowledge to build online and offline initiatives for change. Now, who do we have here with us today, you may wonder? I'm Rasika, facilitating today's session and having been a member at World Pulse since 2022. You're welcome to connect with me and learn more about World Pulse anytime. Today, I'm joined by Martha Lawrence, our Executive Affairs Administrator, and Tiffany Hutton, Operations Associate, to support us on all chat and Q&A. Some of you are meeting us for the first time, and we're very excited for this opportunity for all of you to get to know more of us from World Pulse better. Thank you, Tiffany and Martha, for all your support in making our Tech for Good Thursdays so seamless as always. Today's topic is diving deeper into data. We'll introduce it more fully in a moment. After the presentation, the community cafe will open to all of you. We invite you to bring your questions, insights, and experiences into the circle so we can learn together. Today, we will hear from Chloe Gold. Welcome, Chloe. It's lovely to have you here. Please do share a bit about yourself before taking us along on your session today.
Yeah, for sure. So, hello everyone. My name is Chloe Gold. I've been sorry, I'm having a few technical difficulties. Um, Sorry, my screen is being very weird right now. I apologize.
No worries, Chloe. Is there something we can
Oh
do to
no, no.
support?
I think it's working now. My screen was just, it went black for a few seconds. But yeah, I am based right now in New York, and I've been working on translating data-driven insights into strategies that align with needs of those like accessing and using software products, market and ecosystem trends, and organizational goals, allowing for cross-functional team collaboration and management. I've been a product manager for about 3 years. And I've have a lot of experience in agile scrum experimentation. I currently work in the ad tech industry, and I've majored in data science and business in college, and so I've had a lot of experience both like formally and informally with regards to like working with data, and I use it every day, which I think is really awesome and something I'm really passionate about, and I'm excited to share it with everyone here. Yeah, going to the session outline, I'll first talk about like the World Pulse community and then talk about how I think data is interesting and how it can relate to so many people. Pause before the story, curiosity questions, correlations, not causation, examples of data from questions, hypotheses, and then takeaways. So let's bring it back to the World Pulse community. So first, I wanted to take a minute and I wanted to celebrate everyone here and everyone that's joining virtually and watching later too. I want to talk about how everyone here is making such a tremendous impact in everything they're doing. It takes a tremendous amount of like strength, power, like initiative to do all the amazing things that people that I see in the World Post community. I see everyday people posting like members posting stories and telling us about their journey and the impact they're making and the people they're helping. Behind every idea, there's a drive. Everyone is so incredibly driven. I'm very deeply moved by everything I see on World Pulse's site, and I'm really appreciative to be a part of it. And everyone here is making an impactful change. I just want to bring it back to the community, and what everyone is doing is it matters. It impacts real people's lives, and I just want to take a moment to celebrate that. Um, but going back to data, I want to talk about how understanding data. Oh, wait, can you go back a slide, please? Understanding data helps protect and strengthen this impact. Being able to use another tool might help everyone make change, and it will impact even more people. So data matters in the context of impact. And again, the work everyone does here is deeply human. Programs, stories, decisions here affect real individuals. All the work that everyone does here, it affects so many people in such a positive way. And when we talk about data today, we're not talking about numbers for our own sake. We're talking about a tool that helps us better understand whether the impact you're creating is reaching people in the way that you intend. And each data point could represent a person doing an action, a person feeling a certain way. These aren't just numbers. Behind these numbers, they're people. And they're people that you guys are helping. Okay, next slide. So data is interesting. Data is Data is intimidating. When you first take a look at it, it can feel overwhelming. I want to make sure that people don't feel alone in this. It can feel overwhelming, it can feel stressful, it can feel confusing. It can sometimes feel like a completely different language to some people, and that's normal. But I want to take a look at data in view of like a story. It's often misunderstood as being technical, complicated, only for analysis and for people with all this experience analyzing data. But at the end of the day, it's a story and a record of human feelings, human like reactions, things that people are doing. And so I want to acknowledge that. And I want to make sure that like you're not alone if you feel like data is confusing and it's a little scary, but it's in reality a story, in my opinion. And so I want to say that like if someone logs in, for example, that's a data point that someone might have. And dashboards show patterns, but patterns are not necessarily explanations. The gap between what and why is where curiosity becomes really, really, really powerful. Okay, so we have a story. Let's do pause before the story. So I want to talk about here. This is a slide um, showing how many new members join Whirlpools over time, which is really awesome. First, I want to take a moment to celebrate that. Look at how many members joined. It's such a thriving, growing community, and I want to take a moment to share all this data too, because everyone here is a part of this, and I think it's really impactful. But one thing I'd like to pose in the chats too is do you have any questions about this data that you see? Is there anything you'd like to learn more about when taking a look at this visualization? Is there anything that you'd like, any questions that you have? Because I feel like when we take a look at the data, um, oftentimes I think it's good to ask questions before taking things as assumptions.
Feel free to drop your questions in chat as well, and we can read it out.
I have a question that I usually get asked when we share this data and this information with many different partners at Whirlpools, and we are working into making even this more available for everyone, right? I really use this opportunity with Chloe. I say, can we use this right away? Because this is something that I think many members on Whirlpool still don't know. And the first thing that usually comes up is where are they coming from, for example? Those average 600 people, 600 women around the world. Where are these from? Where are these members from? Um, so that could be one of the questions that we could ask on this. Um, and just to share, maybe some others like, what are the variations? How do you measure that? How do you know that this is the amount of members joining every month? So I just I just want to mention here some of the questions that we usually get. Maybe you have the same ones.
Yeah, feel free to continue thinking about this too. I know that there's a lot of data here, and maybe some other questions could include things. Oh, I see. Katrina also is wondering. Wait, sorry, Karina is also wondering where are these members coming from too, which is another good question. And maybe some other ones could be like, what do people do after they log on? Or how often do they come back? Or um, there's some other questions, but feel free to continue dropping your questions in the chat too.
I see that you are unmuted. Would you like to share a question?
No, just I'm already fascinated. I think this is such important information to be gathering. It's because the work that women are doing and the changes that are needed just continues to be covered up by major media. So this is critical. This is wonderful.
It really is. It really is. And going to our curiosity questions, kind of, I wanted to make sure that when, like, the purpose of the last slide too was not only to present how much the community has grown and sharing the data kind of behind the scenes with the larger community here, is oftentimes when people look at data, they just take the information and take it as fact. But I think it's important to take a minute, pause, and then stop and ask yourself a few questions about the data. Don't always take it at face value. There's always a story within the data, but sometimes when people tell you a story, it's great to ask questions and dive a layer deeper into it. So here's some questions that are often asked when taking a look at the data and could apply to the last slide. Like, as I think, as Karina and Lourdes mentioned, who's included? Who's missing? What's actually being measured? Is it like it could vary in different scenarios? And when was this data collected? That's a super important question too. Is the timing relevant? Sometimes there's peak seasons for certain things and low seasons for different things, and that can affect the data that is seen. Um, Another is, where's this data coming from? How are we getting this data? Making sure that we understand that, because that could be different if we ask people versus if we do an online survey versus if we just take a look at data like historical like technology logs. And then how is this data calculated or defined? There's so many times where metrics have their own specific calculations, and understanding how they're calculated could be so different, and it could lead in such different results. So really understanding how a metric is calculated. And then what explanations are possible? Why are we seeing an increase in this date? Why are we seeing a decrease in this date? So I saw, for example, 669 members joined in July, but 483 joined in January. Is there a reason behind that? Can we ask more questions? Can we dig a layer deeper into it? What changed in July versus January? Could there be some patterns that we might want to understand a little better? And the next is, what's missing? What context do we not see? Understanding like data can't tell a full story. You might have to have There might be parts that are missing to it that we want to dive deeper into a bit later on. But these are just some questions to start with when taking a look at some data that you're presented. And this I would say could apply even beyond the impact and the initiatives that everyone here is doing. And even when you're shown data in media, for example, asking your questions and questioning it too. Always being curious about data within every context, I think is super important. Um, yep, next slide. And feel free again to post in the chat any other questions you had about the visualization that I showed before. Are these questions things you'd like to learn more about? I think it's super important to continuously ask questions about the data, and I think the slides will be posted after so you can take a look at the visualization again. So taking a look at this slide, it's correlation is not causation. This goes into, again, questioning data. There's an example in the summer, we see that ice cream sales increase and we see that sunburn rates increase. Does that mean that ice cream sales cause sunburns? Like selling ice cream causes more sunburns? I think most people could say, like, no, that ice cream does not specifically cause sunburns. It could be something else. And that goes into kind of one of the curiosity questions from before. What is missing? What context do we not see? Maybe layering the UV index on this would also be helpful. Um, Going into why, what explanations are possible? Could it maybe not be ice cream that causes sunburns? Um, there's so many like of the curiosity questions from before that would be so good to ask here. Another one was um, like, when does timing impact this? And I'd say, yes, it does. And so this is used to show that like they're obvious, but there's examples that these are examples that are obvious, but not everything is that obvious. It's not, it might not necessarily show a direct correlation between A and B, but we want to make sure that we're continuously questioning data, and just because two things look related doesn't mean that they're actually related. And there's, yeah, and then the next one too. A similar story is like divorce rates in Maine versus margarine consumption. Ask yourself, does this relationship logically make sense. Could a coincidence explain this? And what additional data do we need? How can we potentially take this a step further to answer number three and do an experiment? How can you learn through an experiment when you see a correlation? Could you go out and dig a little deeper into the data, run more experiments, potentially go and ask people, go and ask people through surveys. I know oftentimes World Pulse, they do a really good job asking on their platform for surveys and for feedback to continuously improve, potentially because they saw some correlations in data. And so this will be a great opportunity to go out, maybe ask survey people to understand what's the actual cause and digging a layer deeper. Let me pause. Does anyone have any questions or comments so far? I know that we've kind of went over a lot. Uh, does anyone have any questions in the chat? Okay. Cool. I'll move on, but feel free to like raise your hand or interrupt. I yeah.
Go ahead, Tam. I think your example was great on the chat.
Yeah, I just think this is all really interesting and great food for thought.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. There could be like a third factor that might not be visible or something that like would be really hard to measure and something to this is a great thing to like consider. And this goes into perfectly, it goes into like our next slide from questions hypotheses.
And sorry, I like to share something because I think, yeah, can I? Thank you. So regarding that previous understanding, right, that things might not be correlated even if they feel they are, or that they show some kind of similar journey in data in the graphs. What Tam was sharing on chat as well is something that we usually like to learn more, right? Like less stories might mean that women are busier and not that there is less interest in sharing their story, for example. But one thing that I wanted to share there is related to what you're going to be talking about now, Chloe, is how can we continue asking questions or continue checking on data that can actually find that correlation? So if it's busier, what else, for example, could we be seeing to say it's because they are busier? Or is it a date in time, for example, I don't know, CSW, that women are busier because they are at CSW or they are paying attention to CSW, or there is something happening around us in context that we want to learn more about, so that that is having an effect, right? Instead of only going and looking into ourselves or particular situations with individuals, right? So yeah, I just wanted to share that another thing to avoid or that we can use data for is to not fall into another assumption. For example, in this case, I would agree, women are busier, but in the end, to turn an assumption into something that you use data for understanding more, you usually need another question and another data point to validate that as well. So I think it's really interesting as well, what we are hearing from Chloe. But yeah, just wanted to share about the amount of questions that we can make to avoid assumptions.
Yes, I completely agree with that. But yeah, so this like goes perfectly into the next slide from questions hypotheses. So first, we kind of talked about like let's talk about the problem statement. What are we trying to understand? What questions do people have? What questions are being formulated? Um, and then the next step is a hypothesis. What's a possible explanation? So I think as Tamaraki mentioned, let me go back to here. Fewer stories may mean women are busier and not that interest has declined. So that could be a hypothesis, a possible explanation for the data that you're seeing or the questions that you have. Another example, do you believe engagement has decreased because users were navigating to a different page? That's a It's great to come up with a bunch of different hypotheses and a bunch of different problem statements. But what we really want to also dig into is not just coming up with them and leaving them and letting them sit on the shelf, but being able to validate them. are all these hypotheses and are all these hypotheses true or are they not? Are there different ways that we can go out and see if what we're observing is the case or if it's not the case? And it's it's great to have a lot of different ways to like different hypotheses and a bunch of different options because it's good to think out of the box and try and come up with different scenarios. But how can we validate that each one is correct or incorrect, and how can we back it up with data? Are there ways that we can do it through finding more data on different data dashboards? Can we go out and survey people, survey members of the community that we've all built, and ask them maybe like for Turmeric's example, we can go out and ask women, are you busier at this time of the year? How has your schedule changed? What other responsibilities have been like have been affected? Let's go out and ask them with the surveys, maybe even if it's just asking as many people as you can to get a deeper level of data. And also, you might even find out something else when you're talking to them too. Some information that you weren't expecting to find, which I always think is a wonderful surprise. Are there other surveys that you can maybe mail out to see if to get a wider reach? But really, just validating the data that you've seen and validating your hypothesis. I think that if you have a bunch of hypotheses, but some of them maybe conflict with each other, some of them might sound right, but you're not really sure about it, go and validate the data through as a bunch of different means. And again, I think that this is something that we've seen on World Pulse that we do get surveys and we do want, and they do ask us to help answer specific questions because probably they're doing their work validating the data that they were able to they're able to see kind of how we're feeling and answer their questions to make the whole platform as best as possible. And I think it's really wonderful that they're doing that because we're able to like, give direct feedback and help with them. But yeah, does anyone have any questions about this besides uh, a pretty? This is a pretty dense slide. Okay. Next slide. So curiosity before conclusion. So I just want, as a final takeaway, when data appears, pause before interpreting the data. Really take a look at it, pause, and then ask your curiosity questions. Try and understand, try and come up with a list of questions about the data so you can dive a layer deeper into it. I feel like with all the data that we're bombarded by in like the media and all the data that we see, going a layer deeper and asking more questions about it will help bring up more insights, more things that everyone can do here to help their community and make sure that they're making the biggest impact that they possibly can with this additional resource maybe. And next is form a hypothesis. Try and figure out why you're seeing this data, seeing, coming up with all the possible explanations. There could be a million explanations, but trying to think of the ones that are most relevant to you and your community. I know that members here are doing, like, again, such incredible things, and I think that just equipping people with this tool to be more curious about the data and trying to find a bit more information about it will really help drive kind of next steps. If you send out a survey and you find out all this really great information, it might change the way that you approach a problem or approach an idea, and you're able to back it up with information, facts, and I think that's also really powerful. Another tool of this is if you're potentially writing grants or trying to get funding, being able to back it up with different data that you've seen and show your peers this data that you've seen. I think that's also really powerful too, to be able to present it to others and show them why you've seen it and why it might have happened. And next is look for validating or challenging findings. We don't want to just validate the data that you see. Maybe we want to find something that will challenge it, something that will disprove it. So going back to the ice cream and sunburns example, is there any data to challenge that ice cream causes sunburns? So taking another look at data that the hypothesis, and then trying to find data to either back it up or challenge it. Yes, next slide. Yeah, so thank you so much for taking the time to come. That's all I had to share today. Feel free to ask any other questions in the chat, or I'm here to help. I think that this is an amazing community and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Hey, Chloe, I wanted to maybe as a follow-up of and thank you so much for your presentation. I think it was um, very challenging, but at the same time, it's very encouraging to start seeing data in this way. And also, my question would be, what would be the first? I mean, what would be the first step if you wanted to you put your feet, let's say, in order to deep dive more about understanding data and how can you do with data? So I don't know, what would be your recommendation maybe for me and also for the community?
Yeah, so I would I would say this first step is whenever you see data, just ask a few questions about it. Ask like a handful of questions. You don't have to come up with 20 or 30 or 40 questions, but I feel like we're bombarded by so much data every day. Just taking it into maybe your everyday life. Something super slow, something super easy. If you see something on the news or on the internet, or asking maybe like one, two, or three questions about it and try and find out more information. I think that that's kind of the first step to take, and then you can see how that applies to your initiatives and asking questions and trying to find data about your initiatives. But again, I know that can be super intimidating, really scary. It can be overwhelming at times too. So just asking a few questions, whether it be about your individual initiative or about just data you see every day, is the first step into, I would say, becoming more data oriented, just questioning it.
Thank you, Chloe.
We had some very interesting points from Tam as well through the chat. Tam, would you like to share anything?
I'm just really really happy for this information and for the work that you're doing, and reminding us how important it is to be documenting uh, what we're accomplishing and what we still need to accomplish.
Mhm. And data can be like a bunch of historical logs of what you've seen, how you've grown, what you've done, what's changed, and something to keep for years and years potentially, because it is a story, and I think everyone's stories deserve to be told. And I think that's what a lot of World Pulse's platform is, to make sure that we're able to tell and uplift stories. And part of how we can do that is through some data.
Yeah, and just to add that we still live in a world that covers up all the work that women are doing. And so your work and you're promoting that we all get busy making sure that the work that we're doing is recorded and known and and uh, and continue to be known is just critical, because in everyday newspapers our work is still hidden.
Thank you so much for sharing, Tam. Anyone else who would like to ask a question, you can even drop it in chat. Feel free to do so.
I like to share one of my learnings, if it's helpful for anybody, on where the data can be found. As you are saying, Tam, like it's hidden in media, it's open out there in WordPulse, for example. But then sometimes when we talk about data, everybody thinks about a dashboard, right? Or a graph or things like that we just shared as Chloe. But in everyday interactions, we see data that we can start comparing, for example, that we don't really understand that is data. So when I joined WordPulse, I remember like the first month coming into the community and understanding what was going on, right? Like trying to belong, as any new woman joining the network must be doing. I remember going into the explore page and the topics of each of the topics that women are talking about, and there is this small item there, right? That it's a number, so we don't put it a lot of focus on it. But every topic on WordPress, every topic, when you click on the explore link on the menu, has the amount of stories that are being shared about that topic. And even that is not a dashboard, but it's information there, can tell you how much more or how many more stories we have on economic power or gender-based violence versus some other topics that we might have on platform like now, for example, we did a great bunch of jumping in the peace and security space. If we compare the amount of stories that are being shared on economic empowerment or gender-based violence versus the ones on peace and security, you will see that there is a difference there. And that also is a lot of information. But as Tam was saying, I think that there is a huge opportunity to make that more visible and more, not because of the number visible, but, gathering that information and putting it in one way so that everybody can find that data as well. But just to share that sometimes data is not a dashboard. Data is there in everyday interactions, especially when we do interactions online, because there is a lot that we can see as we navigate, right? Even sections of languages on Wikipedia, I don't know, like are all the languages there? It's not going to tell you we have all of these languages or this is the percentage of content right away, but you could see a specific article and see how many languages that article has, and that tells you a lot of insights that then you might want to challenge or learn more about. But yeah, data is everywhere, even if it's not a dashboard.
Very true, Lourdes. Thank you so much for bringing those points up. We have a question in chat. Does language differences across geographies play a role in the engagement? I haven't spotted participants from a few prominent nations, example, Russian language natives.
I don't think Chloe has any insight on that. I can share a little bit on it. And yes, it does. There is a lot more to learn on how to improve that. We have translation tools embedded on platform, for example, but not all of them are being used as much as we would like to see a crimson of languages. And I actually had the same question for Spanish, for example. Most of you know that I'm from Argentina. My native language is Spanish. And then if I look for stories in Spanish, we don't find that many on WordPulse. And even I don't go and speak in Spanish on the platform. So there are a lot of decisions there that are also around the impact that you might have when you come into the platform where most of the stories are already in English and you want to be heard. So how do you decide the language that you share on? So I think that there is a lot of work that we are covering with some of the groups on WordPulse to understand a little bit more on that, and see how can anybody feel that if you use your own language, you will be heard anyway. And I have for myself that challenge even. Am I going to be able to reach the members on WordPulse or reach a particular topic interest if I speak in Spanish on WordPulse? And I'm sure that Russian speaking communities have the same issue. So definitely an impact on that, and definitely a lot of questions on data to be asked, and a lot of surveys probably to run to understand more how to solve for that. I hope that answered your question.
Amazing. Thank you so much for those important points to this. Well, please do keep your questions coming in and continue sharing your stories as we're building this community each day. Chloe, I really want to thank you so much for this insightful session today. It was amazing. We truly appreciate all that you do to inspire the World Pulse community and the world at large. I really want to thank all of you so much for joining in. Please share your feedback and ideas about monthly live events with us by using the chat bubble on the website. We also request you to take the poll through the chat before we close out. I'd like to share a gentle reminder that we have our encourager parties every second Thursday of every month, our Tech4Good Thursdays on the third Thursday of every month, and Training Tuesdays on the last Tuesday of every month. So don't forget to join the Training Tuesday next week. You can register for these events through the World Pulse community platform. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I had a lovely session. I hope all of you did as well. Can't wait to see you guys next week and in the weeks to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rasika. Thank you, Chloe. Excellent. Thank you so much. I enjoyed this a lot.
Yes, thank you. See you, everyone.